But beginning with Hamid and reflecting on the views coming from your experiences, in your opinion, what are the critical elements that are necessary to transform education to empower learners in all stages of life for well-being and the future of work and planetary sustainability?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think first and foremost, we need to understand what does education mean, and how can it be a tool to transform our life and an individual. First, education is a lifelong process that prepares an individual for the future and that helps an individual to develop skills, attitude, values in order to solve societal problems. But could we say that the school is actually preparing our students to solve the societal problem today? Probably not. And how can people solve societal problems when they've not developed literacy and numeracy skills that are needed for the future? I mean, the core foundational skills are needed to build higher order cognitive skills in the ever-changing world. And then what happens to children who live in underserved and rural communities, who don't have access to the tools, resources, and opportunities to even change their circumstances, if they can't even read and write? And the basic of success is the ability to read and write. I could recall a friend once said, if you're able to read and write, you have all the tools to succeed. Again, while I won't be focusing on literacy and numeracy skills, I would like us to look at the learning deficiency that is happening in our school today. And what are the learning deficiencies? The environment that students are learning from, especially children in underserved communities. And what am I doing to change this? I started Skill to Rural Boot Camp, an intensive 2 to 5 days boot camp, where children in rural communities and underserved communities identify the challenges and problems in their communities and co-create solutions to those problems using design thinking. So children would identify problems in their communities such as poverty, such as lack of access to quality education, such as climate injustice, and come up with solutions, innovative solutions. And they also have access to mentors who guide them through that process. And from the boot camp, we've seen students who have created drainage system, mechanized farm, community tech labs, mobile clinics. These are children in rural communities that people think they cannot learn and they cannot create things. And these are children who even have low literacy level. So how can we create such programs that can accelerate learning for children in rural communities and prepare them for the 21st century? And this is a kind of experiential learning, right? People learn by doing. So there's no such of like a teacher coming to teach something. They are learning by creating, by using the resources in their own environment. And to end, we should all know that, lastly, we should all know that to transform education, we cannot do it with the readiness and commitment of learners themselves. So we need to constantly engage them beyond one-off intervention and remove barriers that may disable access to complete the puzzle, which is education. This could be ensuring that they have access to scholarships to complete basic and higher education, access to proper meals, providing food vouchers, engaging their parents, and providing adequate mentoring and educational advice. Sometimes skills are not enough. We need to think about other enablers to transform education. So beyond providing skills, we need to provide other supports that complete the jigsaw puzzle of that one child in a rural community in Nigeria. Thank you.
It's incredible that the word that's coming through is youth participation. And you've really inspired us to assess both the meaning and purpose of education. And the best place to start is the natural curiosity of children, as you're doing in the Skills to Rural. We certainly need more of that. And now on to you, Daria. I ask you the same question. What will it take to transform education?
Thank you, Dr. Shireen, and thank you, UNESCO, for providing this space for thoughts, opinion, ideas, frustrations, vision, and hopes. As a young person, I should be honest with you, I am terrified about the future. I am anxious because we, as a society, we are not ready for a 2 degrees Celsius world. We really need to transform education, and we would need to educate not only youth present and future, but everybody. We urgently need to build climate-conscious society. To do that, it requires efforts from all of the stakeholders, governments, multilateral organizations. And firstly, to transform education, we need to be getting ready. We need to scale up our capacity on adaptation equally as mitigation. Education for sustainable development is not merely about nature. It's not about fancy ways to decrease our carbon footprints. It's about building capacity of people to live in the hotter world within the planetary boundaries. We also need to recognize the strong links between climate change, biodiversity loss, and social inequities to make sure that we teach them in the intersectional manner. Education should be more holistic and foster systems thinking and should be integrated in all subjects at schools and universities. Secondly, in the hyper-connected world, we are super disconnected. Corona pandemic made it worse. Yes, online education is transforming the world, but teachers and students haven't seen each other for years or even at all. Online education should be heavily complemented with interactive tools and hands-on experiences, and educators will be a key role at making this learning experiential. It can be as little as having community gardens, just the one that we have this in UNESCO premises to foster community learning and resilience. Thirdly, education for sustainable development should be embedded in daily life of all people. We need to empower everyone to become part of a solution. We don't need, thousands of environmental engineers like me to foster sustainable development. We need everyone doing their part within their specialization, within their interests, hobby, jobs. That can be achieved if we invest in partnership between, for example, content creators, companies, and multilateral organizations to promote social media use, because everybody is using social media anyways, or another alternative ways of informal education through storytelling, to amplify skill sharing, to foster lifelong learning experiences for people of all ages. Last but not least, as it's also coming really strongly on Slido, youth should be granted the right and equal opportunities to participate fully in the formulation, planning, management, and implementation of government programs for education, conservation, and adaptation. We should enable peer learning and foster meaningful participation. I believe this week's conference and youth inclusion is a good step forward, but we can't afford going with the same steps, with the same pace. Temperatures are rising exponentially. So should our efforts. Thank you.
You bring such an incredibly crucial perspective. We don't need to wait. It can begin with a single seed. I take this opportunity to thank our youth panelists who provided us with their insights and hope that this is the moment we commit.